catcalled or worse. I was 15 at the time, female, walking to church on a Sunday morning by myself. It was around 9 a.m. and there was a big black SUV sitting in an empty parking lot. As I walked by, an older man, maybe mid-30s, called to me out the window asking what my name was. Again, I was 15, so I was naive and assumed maybe he knew me or my family, small town. I stopped and told him my first name. He nodded his head towards me, bit his lip, and responded, "Come over here." This is when I realized something was wrong. I ignored his invitation and practically ran the remaining 2-minute walk to my church. Luckily he didn't follow me. As an adult now, I wish I took a mental image of his license plate and called the cops. Was he lurking in that parking lot waiting to find the perfect prey? Or did he just need to ask me a question? Directions? Who knows, but judging by his demeanor I don't think it was innocent. Almost kidnapped I think so. My sister Wendy and my other sister Linda both came with me. We go to the park, I'm chilling with the guy and we're smoking and shit. So my sisters leave, they're just walking around the neighborhood and shit. But then, our mom FaceTimes me, so I panic because we're all supposed to be together, and I tell the guy, I got to go, so that I can look for my sisters. So I am standing at the corner, because they said we can meet there, and this guy pulls up. I don't know what he was saying. I think he was speaking Spanish, but I don't know. He just was mumbling words and I assumed he was complimenting me, so I just smiled and said thank you. Mind you, I am still on the phone with my sisters. But anyway, every time he's about to pull off he just stops. Like something is holding him back. And he just starts to stare at me and smile. And I have him kinda a stink eye, cause what are you staring so hard for? Then I see he turned around and took off his seatbelt and I could feel my pupils physically dilate, and I tell my sister, he's finna kidnap me. Then I hear the door handle click, like you know the noise it makes, and I just booked it until I got into a populated area. Didn't look back not once. Wasn't even interested. Sure, maybe he wasn't gonna kidnap me, but I wasn't taking any chances. Because in my head, if he were to kidnap me it wasn't going to end well. I didn't see not one happy ending. I like that you are tainted, I work in furniture sales. I had an about 55-year-old man come in and just stare at me as I'm working with different customers for about an hour. Several of my male coworkers asked him if he was okay, if he needed anything, ECT, and he said, no, each time, and continued to stare at me from about 10 feet away. Okay. I finish with my customers and he immediately comes up to me and asks me to show him beds. So I show him a bunch, then tell him the store is closing and he had to go. As we are walking out, he starts making comments about my nose piercing and then made the comment, I like that you are tainted. Weirdest situation I've ever been in. I've been hit on a lot in different jobs, but I've never had someone so obviously stare at me and make such a weird comment. Totally creeped me out. Creepy customers? Definitely not a scary situation, but still a creepy one. I recently started my new job at a retail store. We close at 8 p.m. but of course there's always a few stragglers who check out a couple minutes late. I was at the cash register along with another coworker, and since it was closing really only one cashier was needed. Two men in their 40s come along a bit later than 8 p.m. to check out and my male cashier calls them to check out. As they pass by me they start talking about wanting me to check them out instead. I shrugged it off and ignored it until one of the men came over to my register. He looked me in the eyes and said, yeah, I like her more. Honestly I was just creeped out, so I just stayed quiet. Coworker finished checking them out and I'm definitely going to buy pepper spray for when I have to leave work late. Maybe if I was a bit older I would have found it funny, but I'm just 16. Creep neighbors. This is happening right now. It's been going on for about 2 months. My neighbor who really never goes out, she listens to us, laughs at us, and then looks at us with mean eyes, you know what I mean. So me and my girlfriend are really tired of this crazy girl keeps knocking on our wall, which keeps us awake. One day she came knocking at my house and my girlfriend, and then she kept hitting and kicking, and it was done repeatedly. About 2 weeks later it came back banging right at the time I go out to pick up my girlfriend, so I looked in the peephole and my neighbor looked at me through the peephole and she laughed. Since then she has always started to be at the bottom of my apartment block when we come back. She always knows and at what time we go out and we come back, and it really scares us. This was my story. Sorry for the bad English, I'm a French Canadian. Weirdo at the zoo. Super short story, but my 24F and my mom 48F have a tradition on going to the local zoo. It's super small because the animals are all rescues, so it's like a nice rescue where money goes to the animals. Well, we were looking at the birds and taking pics when a man probably around 25-ish came over and started kinda mumbling and trying to start a conversation. My mom is super outgoing and was being nice. When we were walking away he follows us and takes pics and we find it odd and just try to keep going. Well, every time we turned around he was there. Eventually we get to the exit and he was standing at a distance trying to see what car we were going into. We had security walk us out and kinda block his view of us. Well, later turns out the guy was on the news for following a girl home and trying to get in her house. My sleep paralysis memory: I had sleep paralysis one time, and when I did I woke up hearing papers shuffling under my bunk desk bed, and when I got up I called out to my sister because we sleep in the same room, but nobody answered, and when I looked at her bed she was there but asleep, and also the noises stopped, so I laid back down. Then I heard the squeaking noise of someone climbing up my bunk bed ladder. Then I saw a body shape with hair covering its face, and I could still move at the time, so I closed my eyes not that much so I could still see, and the whole figure was crawling towards me and over me, and then when I didn't see it anymore I got up and shouted my sister's name and she woke up. I thought in a sleep paralysis you couldn't move. Self-locking, unlocking door. My wife and I live in a home for around 3 years now, and every now and then the door seems to lock or unlock by itself. For instance, sometimes my wife goes to walk the dog after I had my night shift. Then she doesn't lock the door because I am home sleeping. But when she comes home the door is locked and I am still sound asleep, not knowing anything when she tells me later. And it's a lock in which you have the key 3 times for it to be locked, so it can't be from closing the door. And sometimes we go out, we lock the door and we come back an hour later and the door is unlocked, but when we look on the video there has no one been at the door. So my questions is, what do you make of this? My stalker ex-boyfriend. I never thought you would be posting here, but here I am. He's not really my BF. We're 2 heterosexual guys who used to hang out. I cut off this person, because he was just kind of a D-bag, and had narcissistic personality traits, and I could tell the relationship was becoming very toxic. Since cutting this dude off, he first chased me down in the grocery store, and demanded to know why I don't want to hang out with him anymore. More recently, I went out to my car while on break at school, and I find him walking around my car, peeking into my windows. He does live near my school, and claimed he was going on a run, which he probably was, but still. Why was he peeking into my car? He said he just wanted to see if it was my car, and then acted like it was some random coincidence that we ran into each other. He again insisted that we hang out soon. I feel like he's my stalker ex-BFLMAO. Sketchy doctor? Sketchy man? I'll start with some backstory. I have a brain injury for which I've tried most everything to improve pain, quality of life, etc. Tonight my NM and her boyfriend, of about 2 years, I've met a handful of times, took it upon themselves to send my information to a doctor in another country, without my knowledge, have a phone appointment, consult, without me. Sketchy doctor? Sketchy man? I'll start with some backstory. I have a brain injury for which I've tried most everything to improve pain, quality of life, etc. Tonight my NM and her boyfriend, of about 2 years, I've met a handful of times, took it upon themselves to send my information to a doctor in another country, without my knowledge, have a phone appointment, consult, without me. My mother and her boyfriend are now trying to force me to get him a passport so they can take us to this doctor, who he met on a dating site by the way, and she can treat me, and we will all be staying at her house for a week. My BF is not invited, I guess. I will absolutely not be taking my child there under any circumstance, too many red flags, but now I'm being made to feel as though I don't want to get better if I don't go do this. Am I being a spoiled brat? What would you do? Would you go? Am I paranoid? Help. My dogs alerted me to an intruder who was lurking in my backyard while I was tanning. For context, I don't have a fence. I was taking my dogs out, so I sat in the chairs near my fire pit in my backyard and started tanning. After about 20 minutes of being there, my dog noticed something moving in the bushes in my backyard like 10 feet away from me. He starts barking with his hackles up. A man is startled by my dog's deep bark and yells out, "I'm just taking a picture of my shoe." My dogs go nuts barking at him like crazy. They're 2 golden, so it's a rare occurrence for them to be so on edge with the hackles up. This creeps me TF out. So I grab my dogs and take them inside. I immediately call my boyfriend and tell him what's happening. He told me to call the cops, so I do. The cops don't show up after 30 minutes, so my BF rushed home and confronted the guy, telling him to leave the backyard, and the guy sticks to his odd story. "I'm just fixing my shoe." Boyfriend is like crouching in a bush. "Get the fuck off my property." My girlfriend is scared. This dude continues to stay there for a while but eventually gets intimidated by my boyfriend and leaves. What do you think his motives were? Was someone trying to get me? So this happened a few years ago, but I was thinking about it recently and want to tell others. So one day I was home alone, not for very long. My parents had to check on my grandparents who live literally down the road, so I was alone for about half an hour. I was 13. Big mistake. He then proceeded to ask if I was home alone. I freaked out and ended the call, as well as calling my parents and texting a friend who lived a few doors down from me. I could be overreacting, but is it weird that a complete strange cold caller suddenly asked my age and if I was home alone? I never said I was alone, all I said is that my parents were unavailable. Was this weird? Millions of flies on a bench. This happened about 5 years ago, but it still creeps me out to this day. One day during the summer, me and a friend went for a walk along the river. It was a normal day. It's a common trail, so it's well kept and has benches to rest and watch the river. As we were walking, we came up to a bench that was entirely covered in black flies, like to the point that the brown wood looked black and all the buzzing coming from it was very loud. I instantly got a horrible feeling that we need to turn around and leave right away, and that's exactly what we did. I haven't walked down that curtain path since, cause it creeped me out so much. I've always thought back to it and tried to think of why this would happen. Of course my first thought was that it was paranormal, but maybe someone put something on the one bench to attack the flies to the bench like that? Either way, it was a super creepy thing to randomly encounter. Has anyone ever seen something like this before?